How you doing? I want to speak about the things that's going on concerning Ponzi schemes. Now, a Ponzi scheme is what we know as a blue-collar crime, and I don't really know, extensively. But let me show you what the Capitol says about Ponzi schemes and the penalty that comes along with that.
You've probably heard of a Ponzi scheme, or at least know of Bernie Madoff. He's the guy who's partially to blame for the economic crisis of 2008.
Bernard Madoff has just been sentenced for the biggest investment fraud in Wall Street history.
Ponzi schemes didn't begin or end with Madoff, and they're still present today. So here's how they work. The person who runs a Ponzi scheme offers their first investors high returns on their investment. They then find new investors and give that new money to the original investors. They continue pumping in new money and dumping it to older investors, all the while pocketing their own cut, until there's no more new investors, and the scam dries up. It's often called robbing Peter to pay Paul. Charles Ponzi was the first person to run the scheme. In the 20s, he swindled investors with a plot that would make money by taking advantage of the exchange rate of international stamps. He was so successful that he made $420,000, which today equates to $5.1 million. And it turns out he only ever bought $30 worth of stamps.
What used to be called a Ponzi scheme is now better characterized as a Madoff scheme.
Bernie Madoff ran a similar scheme in the 90s that became
The biggest investment fraud in Wall Street history.
Biggest Ponzi scheme in history.
Giant Ponzi scheme.
One of Wall Street's biggest scandals.
One of the biggest swindles of all time.
What the heck went on?
He baited clients into paying him with a made-up investment strategy that he was guaranteeing to pay high returns. He would then deposit all of his clients' money into a bank account. Meanwhile, he would show investors false reports that showed they were making money, and if any of them wanted out, he'd pay them with money from the group account. The fraud ran until 2008, when the market went into a recession. The fraud's fund's final statement showed it had $64.8 billion in it. His sons turned him into the authorities when they figured it out.
We knew right away that that was our only course of action.
Bernie Madoff was sentenced to 150 years behind bars, the maximum sentence for one of the biggest swindles of all time.
And that's not where financial fraud stopped. From 2008 to 2013, there were over 500 Ponzi schemes involving over $50 billion.
A former Delray Beach City Commissioner,
A prominent and well-connected attorney.
One half of the Boomer and Carton program was arrested this morning and charged in a Ponzi scheme.
The SEC and FBI white-collar crimes divisions investigate these crimes. But how can you spot one? Well, there are resources you can use. The Association of Certified Fraud Examiners offers a fraud prevention checkup, and you can listen to the Fraud Talk podcast and read Fraud Magazine to stay informed. But generally speaking, you should be wary of anyone who promises high returns with little risk or who won't divulge their investment strategies, as well as anyone that shows you consistent returns despite market conditions.
Also, what's getting ready to happen to those who doing it against the child of God, against the true chosen servant of Yah. So I'm gonna let that be, and it's just to show you a little example of what I've been dealing with. People flipping in and out, changing prices, switching prices on the internet, doing this, that, and the third. And I don't think the president is giving y'all permission to do that, because he's the president of the United States, and neither is the legislation or the FBI it really involved in you doing that. But if they don't want to say nothing, then that's because they might not know too much, but they do know enough to come get you right now. But just to let you know what they're looking at that you don't know they're looking at. And I'm not snitching, but I'm just letting you know that this is what the government already knows, and they watching you whether I speak or make a video or not. You understand?
Her victims came to the courthouse today to confront the woman whom they say ruined their lives. Suzette Nguyen hid behind this glass window trying to avoid our cameras. She'll be spending 46 months behind bars for swindling 11 victims of more than $500,000. She'll be spending 46 months behind bars for swindling 11 victims of more than $500,000.
She took us from being good community servants in the Pop Warner Association to being the bad people because she was already guilty of what she was. She took us from being good community servants in the Pop Warner Association to being the bad people because she was already guilty of what she was doing to us.
This is drugged out long enough. Like I said to her in the courtroom, I don't have the words and I'm not able to forgive right now.
Nguyen finally emerged behind a cover after nearly 2 hours of waiting. She and her lawyer declined to speak. The former president of the Eva Beach Pop Warner football organization ran the Ponzi scheme through a company called Money Sense starting in 2007, while on probation for a previous conviction of embezzling money from a nonprofit.
It was my understanding I could invest for a year. But like I said, 3 days later I wanted my money back and no return calls, no nothing.
And it was just absolutely heart-wrenching to hear about the virtual tsunami of economic damage that the defendant caused. And I think that's what really led the judge to giving a 46-month sentence.
According to the FBI, approximately 30 other con artists have been convicted of similar Ponzi schemes over the last 5 years in Hawaii. Some of her victims learned a lesson the hard way. According to the FBI, approximately 30 other con artists have been convicted of similar Ponzi schemes over the last 5 years in Hawaii. Some of her victims learned a lesson the hard way.
If you feel like it's wrong, it's probably wrong. There's never a quick way to get rich, so just research.
Why do you think so many people get greedy? They think they're going to get money back. Like in my case, I saw co-workers getting money back, and it took a long time before I got involved.
Nguyen will report to a federal prison to be determined on January 21st.